All right, it just went final in Norman as Oklahoma takes down Michigan 24-13. We've got instant reaction to this one. Plus, we'll go around the country as week 2 of the college football season has mostly wrapped up. My name is Harrison Graham. This is For Verts. If you love college football, if you love the NFL, we're the channel for you, bringing you reaction every single Saturday night, obviously primetime NFL games, Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night as well. Then videos throughout the week. So lock us in. We got you covered. All right, Sooners 24, Wolverines 13. I liked the under in this game. That ended up playing out. And, you know, this kind of played out similarly to what I thought, but I thought it would be a little bit closer. I thought it would be a low scoring defensive physical game that John Mateer would just make a few more plays than Bryce Underwood. In reality, he made a lot more plays, but Oklahoma had a few turnovers to keep Michigan kind of in the game when in reality, this probably could have been like a 31, 34-13 type of game, but nonetheless, a huge win for Brent Venables. You know, this is one of those games where I think coming into the season, people highlighted this game in week 2 as okay, the winner of that game has to be taken somewhat seriously as a college football playoff caliber team. The loser, it's going to be a little tougher. Doesn't mean Michigan's season's over, doesn't mean Oklahoma's now a playoff team, but the winner of this game was always going to be it kind of vault themselves into that category of, oh, they could be a playoff team. I don't view either of these teams as a true national title contender, but John Mateer is a veteran quarterback, a true dual threat guy that can make a lot of plays. He threw for 270 yards and a touchdown, ran for 70, I think 74 on 19 carries, 2 more scores. I thought Herb Street made a good point in that fourth quarter of moving forward, Oklahoma has to find some contributions from their running backs. You can't ask Mateer to run the ball 15, 20 times a game. I mean, Torrey Blaylock, 9 carries, 24 yards. Javante Barnes, 6 carries, 24 yards. Jaden Ott, the Cal transfer, who a couple of years ago was awesome, but was banged up last year and hadn't done much through a couple games this year. 4 carries, 9 yards. Like, they need somebody to take the load off Mateer because over the course of 12 games, and especially once they start stacking these SEC opponents, he just can't do it all. Like, he's a very good player, but it's not like this is Cam Newton and he's 6'5", 250, and he can just take a beating. So moving forward, that's something to watch. But made a lot of big-time plays today. He's got a strong arm. He can throw on the move. He's mobile, obviously. He can run. Obviously, he should run, and they should run him. That is going to be part of this offense, but you got to find that balance and pick and choose when to do that. But a big win for Oklahoma. And look, I've been hard on Brent Venables, but one thing I've said that he's brought to the table that Lincoln Riley never did is they're good and they're physical on defense. In just 2 of the last 3 years, the offense has been embarrassing. The year they had Dylan Gabriel, they were pretty good offensively, and they won 10 games. And this year they get John Mateer, and I could see a similar result, 9-10 wins. Now, they got a lot of tough games coming up. Auburn in a couple of weeks, who beat a Baylor team that beat SMU this week. So maybe Auburn's a little bit more formidable than people thought. They've got, obviously, Texas coming up in about a month. At South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, who beat Kansas today, LSU. I mean, it's a gauntlet of a schedule for Oklahoma, which is why if they were going to threaten to be a playoff team this year, you really had to get this win, and they got it. So this is a huge non-con win for them. So I know Sooner fans are excited and should be. That crowd was rocking. Kind of a must-have for Brent Venables. I feel like you lose this game, you got a lot of losable games on the schedule. You go like 7-5. They could pivot pretty easily at head coach. I mean, this is a pivotal year for him in Norman. So I think this kind of slows down those talks significantly, at least for right now. For Sharon Moore's team, look, Bryce Underwood, 9 for 24. He started 4 for 5. So the rest of the way, he was 5 for 19, 142 yards. I'm not going to overreact too much. It's a true freshman in a road environment in his second start. And quite frankly, I look at this game tonight. They didn't protect well up front. This Michigan O-line and pass protection, I don't think is as stout as a normal Michigan O-line. They're good in run blocking. Justice Hayes had 125 yards, including a 75-yard run. Um, but more, what really stands out to me, and it's not shocking, even when Jim Harbaugh was the coach, they never had a ton of difference makers at receivers, but where are the playmakers? The Donovan McCulley guy, he can make some plays, but had a 44-yard catch. But there's no difference makers. Obviously Colston Loveland's in the NFL now. They don't. It feels like they're slow. And I get when Harbaugh was there, and obviously Sherrone Moore is an offensive lineman. Like their philosophies are ground and pound, be physical. It's like, well, you threw Bryce Underwood, who's a pass first quarterback, $12 million in NIL. Get him some weapons. Now, it's not all about this year, it's about the future as well. I know they've added some guys in recruiting, so it's not something to hit the panic button about or anything, but it would be like, trying to compare it to another sport, it would be like having LeBron James and having no legitimate sidekicks. And I'm not saying Bryce Underwood's the end all be all, but you can see the talent. Even tonight when he struggled for a lot of the game, it's like he's big, he's physical, he's got a strong arm. I would try to run him a little bit more if I was Michigan. He's not like a burner or anything, but I think he can be a physical runner at 225, 230 pounds. So I think this will be a good learning opportunity for him. Looking ahead, they got Central Michigan next week, at Nebraska in 2 weeks. That's a big game. Like if they can get through that game, Wisconsin at home, at USC, Washington at home, at Michigan State, Purdue, at Northwestern, at Maryland. Not a lot of cupcakes in there, but a few, and some very winnable games. That at Nebraska, at USC, twice in 3 weeks stretch. That's going to be an interesting one. That's why this game was so much bigger for Oklahoma than Michigan, because Michigan's schedule is somewhat manageable. They could still win 9 or 10 games and be a fringe playoff team, but they got to find some playmakers offensively. It's just not there. And, I'm not, maybe they're not going to find that on the fly this year, and they kind of just got to make it work with what they've got. But that's really what stood out to me. Sure, Underwood missed some throws here and there and whatnot, 9 for 24. Clearly, that's not all in the receivers, but true freshman, second career start. I am not hesitating at all on what I think he can be as the Wolverines quarterback. I just think they got to find some big time playmakers moving forward. Okay, do want to bounce around the college football landscape a little bit. It wasn't the best slate this week, but there were some notable outcomes. Let's start with this. Not a great result for the Big 12. Arizona State, last year's Big 12 champ, loses to Mississippi State 24-20. Clearly, Cam Scadaboo was a big loss for the Sun Devils, as Blake Shapen, who's in like year 6 of college football, outplays Sam Leavitt and beats Arizona State 24-20. That's a huge result for Jeff Leavitt, former OU offensive coordinator, by the way, now the Mississippi State head coach. Not a good result for Arizona State and for the Big 12. That's kind of a rough look, if I'm being honest. Speaking of the Big 12, no one expected Oklahoma State to beat Oregon or really even compete. But when you go out there to Eugene and you lose 69-3, I don't care how much Oregon is pouring in an NIL, and Mike Gundy was bitching about that this week. And it's like, look, man, you either evolve or die in this sport. You either get on board, and clearly Oklahoma State is not going to have the resources Oregon is. But Gundy has been so against NIL, and he said this year was kind of the first year they spent any money at all. And this week he was bitching like, oh, it's an unfair advantage. And it's like, look, man, like I get it. You're old school. There's parts about that I appreciate. It's kind of like Jerry Jones in a sense. Like there's certain things about that old school pre-2000s, pre-social media era world that you can appreciate. But it's like the reality is that's not this world. You either adapt and try to compete with what the modern college football world is, or you're going to go get embarrassed in games like this. And they got embarrassed. 69-3. Like, you shouldn't lose that bad. Mike Gundy has had too good of a career to get just demolished like that. And Oregon took it personal, and they said as much. So, because his comments come off as if like, they don't, whether he meant this or not, if I'm Oregon, I take that's like, oh, you're acting like we don't work hard, that we're not a good team, that, they just wrote us blank checks. And, we don't deserve to be here. It's like Dan Lanning's kind of a good coach. He kind of knows what he's doing. And Mike Gundy, who Oklahoma State basically half fired last offseason, but they ended up keeping him and he accepted a pay cut and all this stuff. It's like it's very Gary Patterson at TCU-esque from a few years ago where it's kind of awkward because he built the program, but if multiple years go by and you're falling behind in this modern era, it's like sometimes a tough decision has to be made. And I don't see how Mike Gundy gets this thing back on track. They're pretty talentless. I get their starting quarterback got injured last week and they didn't have him. That would not have made a difference. It's a joke, man. They're just not any good, and it's sad because he's going out ugly. I mean, they're going to win. I know the Big 12's probably not great this year, but they're still not going to beat the upper echelon Big 12 teams. I mean, it's college football. There might be an upset here or there, but I would be stunned if they even made a bowl game. Clemson rallies, but they were down 16-3 at halftime to Troy. And I kind of went back and forth in the preseason on Clemson. I did pick them to win the ACC and to get a top 4 seed in the CFP kind of reluctantly, but I did pick it. But I've never been a huge Cade Klubnik guy, especially in big games. We saw it again last week against LSU. He did not play that great. Today, he looked like shit for about 2.5 quarters. They did rally to win, but it's not Mike Gundy-esque for Dabo Swinney, and they were in the playoff last year, even though they kind of backed in. But he's old school too, and he's not really an NIL transfer portal guy, and it's like, I don't know. I think that caps your ceiling if you're not using all of the outlets and resources that college football offers. You got to use the portal. You got to be willing to spend in NIL. And, I think Clemson did that a little bit more this offseason for the first time in a while, but I don't even think they're the team to beat in the ACC right now. Florida State, I don't care who they play. You score 77 points after beating Alabama. That's a natural letdown spot. You could be, screw around. Clemson, after losing last week, they're actually the team in a letdown spot for a half before they had to rally against Troy. So that did not impress me. Illinois had a nice win, 45-19 over Duke. I've said this. I said it leading up to the season. Illinois plays Indiana, I think, here in a few weeks. The winner of that game has a real path to the college football playoffs. So keep an eye on that. I like that Illinois team. Good defensively. Luke Altmaier's a veteran quarterback. Brett Bielema is a good coach. I like what they've got cooking. Perhaps the biggest upset of the day, South Florida over Florida. Look, Florida's been overhyped, overranked, all that stuff, but you can't lose this game if you're Billy Napier. He's in major trouble. They lose 18-16 to South Florida, who could be emerging, by the way, as the group of 5 playoff team. Keep an eye on them. Byram Brown is a pretty good dual threat quarterback. Alex Golesh is going to get a big job. Who knows? He might be the next coach at Florida. He just auditioned for it, no question about it. This is a big year for Billy Napier. A big reason why they kept him is A, they rallied down the stretch last year, and B, DJ Lagway, the superstar quarterback, he's the guy who recruited him, so you don't want to fire Napier and lose Lagway. So they ended up keeping him, and you lose to South Florida at home. You score 16 points. I mean, give me a break, man. Now they go at LSU next week, at Miami the week after that, and then Texas and at Texas A&M. Next 4 games, at LSU, at Miami, Texas at home, at Texas A&M. And, oh, by the way, they still have Georgia, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. I mean, getting to a bowl game after this result would be an accomplishment at this point. I think Napier is in big, big, big trouble. You can't afford to lose this game. I mean, they're going to struggle to get to 6 wins, and not even because they're a terrible team, but because they have a brutal schedule. And if you're losing to South Florida, who I think is solid, they're probably a top 25 team, but they're not those other teams I just mentioned. That's tough, man. I don't know how you recover from that. So we'll see what happens there. Cyhawk always entertaining. Iowa State takes down Iowa 16-13. Feels like the Cyclones could be kind of the early favorites in the Big 12. They did beat Kansas State in week 1, who, by the way, the Wildcats, who were a trendy pick to win the Big 12, not only lost to Iowa State in week 1, they then barely beat, I think, South Dakota last week by 3. And then this week, they lost to Army, who lost to Tarleton State last week. That is a disaster for Kansas State. So, again, some rough Big 12 results, but that's a big one for the Big 12 and for Iowa State to beat Iowa at least, 16-13. Another good Big 12 win here. Baylor bounces back after losing to Auburn. They beat SMU on the road, and they were down 14 in the fourth quarter. They rally to win 48-45 over a playoff team from a year ago in double overtime as they just had to have it late and found a way to get it. I'm blanking on Baylor's quarterback, Sawyer Robertson, 440 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Kevin Jennings, a huge day for SMU, but the Mustangs defense just collapsed down the stretch, and Baylor gets the big win there. Ole Miss in an early SEC battle with Kentucky. Remember, this is a big loss for Ole Miss a year ago, a big reason why they were left out of the playoff. They beat Kentucky 30-23 on the road, and that's about it. That's about all the notable matchups from today. There might be a couple games going on right now. Let me see here. South Carolina, yeah, this game was in a rain delay. They're playing, or a weather delay. They're up 31-3 over South Carolina State. So nothing to really take away there. But fairly light week, but a couple of notable upsets. South Florida over Florida, Mississippi State over Arizona State, and then Baylor over SMU. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Four Verts. Join us tomorrow. We're going to be live for the noon NFL games. Myself, producer Sam Brown, going to kind of go a little whip around red zone style, if you will, keep you up to date with the noon Central, 1 o'clock Eastern NFL games as week 1 of the season is here. So we will be live for that, chopping it up. So hopefully you guys will join us. We'll continue to work in some college football. We'll see you guys soon here on Four Verts. Don't forget to subscribe.